bring you up to date on a few things, and I'd rather talk it with you than bring it up in the board meeting because you can handle this.
Not a problem.
All right, thanks.
Good morning, all. I would like to call the Finance Committee, Berrien County Finance Committee to order. And I would like to ask Annette if you would let us know the agenda.
Sure, absolutely. So we'll have Stephanie go ahead and do the roll call.
Okay. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning. Commissioner Yarborough.
Mamie L. Yarborough, City of Benton Harbor, County of Berrien, in a virtual meeting present.
Commissioner Harrison.
This is Bob Harrison in a virtual meeting from Lincoln Township.
Commissioner Hinkleman.
Commissioner Hinkleman, I'm here from Cambridge Township on Zoom.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes, Commissioner Scott, New Buffalo Township, Berrien County, Michigan, via Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you all. Annette, and welcome. Good morning, Administrator Bissett.
Good morning.
All right, so the first thing on your agenda today is Information Systems Director Chris Swihart is going to talk about some IT-related CARES Act projects. So he is with you guys on Zoom. So if you would please, I'm going to mute the room, and if you guys could mute so that we don't have any cutouts of his audio.
Okay.
All right, Chris, take it away.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
A few months ago, after the CARES Act was announced, Administrator Dissett approached me and some other individuals and, challenged us to kind of look into, some projects that we had scheduled for next year and maybe some other areas where COVID has impacted, specifically IT in my department, and how we could benefit from that funding that was made available to us. So I spent a lot of time, and as you know, IT has been heavily impacted by COVID. We're sitting here on a virtual meeting today via Zoom, which is something we didn't do pre-COVID. In the last week alone, since we started locking things or backing things back up and having more people work from home, I've added close to 100 remote users in the last week, which, is just something that we didn't do before. It's a new direction we're going in and has impacted my department directly because we're, busy supporting these people. We're having to adjust our infrastructure and our technology to be able to support them and be able to enable them to still do their business from home. So I put a list together, which you should all have received, of these projects that I felt, were directly related to COVID. Some things that we had scheduled for next year, some other areas I felt that would add and help us be able to support our users better during this time. And let me see if I can share this with you. And then I'll just kind of go through, hopefully you all see my screen right now. And this is the document that I sent out and Annette shared with you for this meeting. So I had 7 projects that I've kind of identified as being directly impacted by COVID. And I'll just kind of run down the list. If you have questions, please feel free to stop me. One of the biggest one, and this was something we had slated for next year, is the courtroom AV equipment. Right now they're supporting hearings, jury trial, selections, all kinds of different hearings and proceedings virtually now, which is something that those courtrooms weren't equipped to do to begin with. Their equipment was already kind of end of life and was slated to be upgraded for next year, but because of COVID, we had to kind of take it in a new direction to be able to also support all these virtual meetings. So that is probably, a priority project, something really that we need to get done. They're still, in process, they're still working. They still have attorneys, connecting from all over the place, public defenders, that connect in and have to participate in their proceedings every day. So that is a major project we had slated. It's roughly $300,000 that I think that really could benefit from the COVID CARES Act funding. You'll also notice the next item down I have is the Empire Wireless Bridge upgrade. That is our primary link between the courthouse and the Empire facility, where we have 911 dispatch, EOC, Sheriff's Department substation, printing. And that link really, with all the people that have been connecting remotely, attending remote meetings. Rocky's been, holding virtual meetings for EOC at various points during this pandemic. That being a licensed microwave link really needs to be upgraded. We've had a couple of instances throughout this proceeding where the number of users has really spiked that link and consumed a lot of the bandwidth and affected performance. And we see a real need there to be able to upgrade that link. And kind of similarly, if you dump down to the admin wireless, it's a very similar situation. You guys, the admin building connects back to the courthouse to gain access to the internet. We've had various times, and I'm sure you've experienced during these Zoom meetings, where the bandwidth becomes congested just based on the number of users doing various things, and it creates performance problems. So that also really needs to be upgraded. I'd like to bump both those sites from 100 meg up to 1 gig. This one is significantly less, and that's because the Empire Wireless is being involved with 911 EOC. It has to meet certain requirements. It's a licensed FCC frequency for a microwave for that facility. The other thing that I have is a BOC room AV upgrade, and that's to permanently equip the EOC room or the BOC room with AV equipment so that it can support remote hearings. I mean, it's required now under the Open Meetings Act. When this first happened, then Administrator Wolf had me put a package together very quickly to be able to hold these remote Zoom meetings, but that's still the equipment you're running on today. It was never permanently installed. It's a TV setting on a stand with a camera on top. And going forward, we really need to equip that room properly so that it's fully capable of being able to handle these meetings, that we have better audio, better acoustics. I know that, that has been a problem from time to time. In order to be able to support these meetings really the way that they need to be supported. So that's a project that I went out and worked and got quotes on. And you see that that's about an estimated cost of $71,000.
Chris, would you stop a minute?
Sure.
That is interesting that you're telling us. And I think those of us that were there watching for the budget hearing, we saw the equipment. Otherwise, we had not known about it. And so I understand what it is you're talking about. So would it be like cameras in the ceiling, or would there still be a screen like?
Yeah, so really it's to completely integrate, be able to integrate Zoom and remote video meetings into that room. We're adding ceiling tiles. We're adding microphone hardware. We're really completely redoing the entire setup. It's a new projector, new screen, and there's components on the background to tie everything in so that you can stream it out to the internet. It will make it much easier for Annette and the people there to manage. So it's properly equipping that room to support the things that we're trying to do going forward. So to help, control some of the audio problems. You have wood paneled walls with a marble floor and a hard ceiling. It creates a lot of echo. So we have to mitigate that somehow.
Okay.
So
Just
really
don't bother the floor.
Yeah.
don't bother the ABCs.
Right. We're not planning really to do anything with the floor, but adding some acoustic tiles to the ceilings and up a little higher to try and absorb some of that echo so that you can hear people properly in that room, and doing what we can not to mess with the aesthetics of the room, but to make it a little more Zoom friendly, so to speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that further explanation.
Yep.
Continue.
Chris, Commissioner Scott, I have one other point while we're on this particular thing. And this is not only for you, it's probably for Annette also. But we also discovered that when we were starting to do these Zoom meetings and that, some of the county commissioners do not have the best broadband at where they're at from home or wherever. And we've had several instances where commissioners have had to use their cell phones to call in to Annette, and then Annette tries to put them on a speaker so that we can hear. I believe the phone in the Board of County Commissioners room right now, I believe you cannot call into that. For some odd reason, you cannot call in to the boardroom.
Well,
Is that correct, Annette?
Yeah, I think we discovered that last year, and there's a reason for it, but I don't remember what it is.
I know that, but what I'm wondering is if there is a way to integrate a way for a county commissioner to still attend a meeting via his phone, but to call in to the conference center rather than to call in to Annette's cell phone or Brian Doucette has already used his cell phone. Maybe we need to look at that part of it also if we're looking at kind of upgrades. And I don't know whether that has anything to do with the next one, Cisco phone system. So just my thoughts. Maybe we need to look at that also.
Hey, Commissioner, I want to follow up on that just so that we're all on the same page. Over the last couple of months, a number of times, I've had to very quickly dial individual commissioners from my cell phone, put them on speaker, and then set my cell phone next to the conference room speaker phone, just essentially trying to quickly pull you all together. It's not even close to being an efficient way to do this. And the advice that I've given to Chris and his team is, from what we're seeing, more than likely the use of Zoom is going to be the new normal. And as a person that's in the room every week, I just see your staff scrambling, trying to make these meetings run as efficiently as possible. And it could be so much better. So this is something that I've really pushed Chris to come up with some longer term solutions.
Right, and that's why I wanted to bring up that phone issue, because nobody really kind of knew that before. And it was when I talked to Annette about it before and she found out about it, she was like, oh my, didn't know. So maybe there's a way we can do that to help integrate this boardroom.
Yep. And that's certainly something we'll look into, and I appreciate that. I guess didn't know you were running into that particular problem. There are some things we can do even now to assign that conference room phone in the boardroom a DID number. I know every Zoom meeting has a conference number you can call directly into to participate during audio. But going forward, again, this is a complete redo of that AV system in that room, and definitely something that we'll make sure that we address and look at to make sure that it's easy for people to call in when they do have broadband issues at home, which is something, obviously outside of our control, but to give them alternative options to be able to get in and connect to those meetings.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and just to kind of run through the remainder of my list here. So the third and fourth floor network upgrade, that was something that I had slated for next year. We've added a number of laptops, Surface Pro tablets for the courts specifically, and a lot of wireless access points. We added 20, almost 30 access points in the courthouse. And those added devices have created a lot of network congestion up on those floors specifically. So that was a project I had to take those two floors up to 1 gig switches. They're currently on 100 meg. And so that is something that definitely I felt could benefit from the CARES Act funding. The Cisco phone system upgrade, now that is something that I didn't have slated for next year, but something that's kind of come out as being a real need for the county during this. And that is being able to extend your desk phone, like I have back here, and being able to extend that to people at home. So they have access to their county extension so they can receive calls. So this is basically that software that will allow us to do that. That will allow us either to install an app on a smartphone, send them home with a desk phone and have it connect back to our phone system here. So they have access to that phone, to that extension, and they can actually still receive calls that are going to their desk at work. We've kind of worked around that in a few ways, but we're very limited on the number of users that we can accomplish that with. And this will fully enable the county to be able to support that remote worker, not with just, we're doing a lot of things for their PC, but also their phone. So that's, to me, is a very much needed thing that we have to have. And then the last item on the list is a Comcast fiber upgrade. And when this first started, I worked to get our existing internet upgrade as quickly as possible because, we knew we were going to have a big demand for remote users. And we currently have cable, coax cable that Comcast provides. So I was able to expand that up to basically the max service that they provided over cable. Well, the problem with cable is that you're, without getting too technical, the information that we send, we can pull more information down than we can send up. And then when we're streaming, we tend to send a lot of information, video information up to like Zoom or various sites. And so during this, we're streaming a lot more than we really anticipated, and we're hitting that cap on what cable can provide. So I need to really bring in a fiber service, which has equal amounts that you can send up as well as pull down. And that would just give us a lot of breathing room, a capability of supporting things without having bandwidth congestion and jitter and some of those things that you experience. So that's really something that I need to push forward as part of this project. It's very much a necessity. We just had no idea we were going to be supporting, multiple courtrooms throughout the county, streaming trials and proceedings and attorneys. And then you had visitations between juveniles and their parents. And I mean, just so much stuff that we've had to kind of accommodate. And this is really a much needed step.
Chris, just a real quick
Yes.
question. Why are we only going 500 meg?
We could certainly go higher.
Or
There is 1 gig available. I could certainly go higher. I was looking at basically trying to be cost conscious. The 1 gig next step up was, I believe, $300 more a month. Not a ton of, I guess, still money, but yes, there is 1 gig available. We could go even higher.
right, but I mean, if I don't know, I'm just asking if you would look at those figures, because a gig up and a gig down would be, that would take us a long way, because what are we at now?
Currently, we have 1 gig down, but we only have 30 meg up, and that's the limit really on what Comcast cable provides.
Right.
So we felt that, the 500 direction both ways, because we see what we're pulling currently and what we're sending up. While we're not close to that gig that we're pulling down, we're very close on that 30 meg, and sometimes have exceeded that. And so, certainly, the additional, if we move that up to a gig, would go a lot farther for us, I think, in the long run, as we add more and do more. So definitely.
I was looking at it for a price point. That's all. If you could just look at it, that'd be fine. That's all I had.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
And that's, all the CARES Act recommendations that I had. Do you have any questions or?
I do. I would like to ask something. I don't understand why on Zoom we have to have so many phone numbers? Why we don't use the same number each day? I'm sorry, each, like today, finance, the number of things we're going to do with the same people. And then does it cost, and does it cost a lot? Is Zoom something you should own, or we should buy stock in, or, what? And that's what I'm saying, why we have all these different phone numbers to connect. Kind of explain that to me.
Yep. Okay. Very easy. So, yes, I wish I would have bought stock in Zoom before this all started, because it, as we know, went through the roof. But so, yes, we own a number of licenses that we pay for annually. Our renewal for Zoom will come up here in March as we approach the 1 year that we kind of started all this. Initially, we bought a certain number of licenses through the county, and obviously we've added a ton more since this all started. Now, the way the system works, when you pay for a license, you get their default call-in package. All those numbers that you see, those are Zoom provided numbers. They give you a lot of options to call into to be able to get connected to the meeting.
Yes.
You can buy a 1-800 number that would become yours. There is a cost to it. At the time, it was very expensive. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I certainly could get that figure for you if that's something that the county is interested in pursuing. So it was like almost $200 or $300 a month or something like that, just to have a single number that you could call into. So I don't know where it is now. I'd have to research it to be able to give you the exact figure, but that's what I remember.
Okay. I'm not asking you to do that. I just wondered, I didn't understand. I didn't know if it was security or, some things or whatever. And then I want to ask, we received money. Instead of our money we normally get, we were getting something all together. Is this CARES money you keep talking about? Is that it? Is that the money we received from the state and federal? Or is this new money we're requesting, or do we have it already?
Can I respond to that one?
CARES.
So, Commissioner, what we're trying to do right now, there's going to be a theme to today's finance meeting, and it's essentially queuing up as many projects as possible that the Finance Committee is comfortable with the understanding that we're sitting on approximately $1.8 million of CARES Act funding. Now, the CARES Act is one of these that has a whole lot of strings attached to it, and it is a use it or lose it funding. So what we are trying to do today is give you a snapshot of all of the projects that we would like to do. CARES Act has to be committed by the end of the calendar year. And for any dollars that are not committed to CARES Act expenses, we will then have to return them to the state of Michigan.
Okay.
And what I've tried to explain to our various department heads is we do not want to send a nickel back.
Okay.
We know that we've got a ton of projects that are very legitimately tied to COVID-19. And what Chris is going to show you is here are all of the projects that we believe can be funded by CARES Act.
Okay.
And then I've got to work with Chris and our finance team to divvy up how much of our CARES Act money is still remaining,
Yes.
and work aggressively to get those projects committed prior to the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Ma'am, does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. So we're talking about bidding out and all kinds of stuff, huh?
And yes, you are. And you're talking about trying to do this prior to the end of December. So we've got a relatively small window of time to get projects queued up,
Yeah.
to have finance review them, and to get them committed before we shut down for the end of the calendar year.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Committee members, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, Bob Harrison. For Chris, are there any projects at either the Health Department or the Niles complex that would benefit from some IT support in a different fashion or an expansion?
So I think, some of these things that we do have in this list already will benefit all county employees, especially the phone system, the internet, which everybody relies on, will be things that benefit all departments. A lot of the requests we're getting from other departments right now revolve around adding people to be able to work from home, work remotely, addition of laptops, enabling people to take their, a PC home and connect back in. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing from these departments, specifically the health department. We're engaged with pretty regularly, just enabling them to connect, to be able to work from anywhere is a big priority for them.
Any other questions, committee?
Yes. This is a twofold question for Chris and for Brian. With all of these changes that we're putting in because of COVID, with phone numbers being able to be routed to county employees' homes and or access to the computers, is there anything at all that we should be looking at policy-wise on the use of those phone numbers and computer access for county employees? I don't like to put any more work on anybody, but maybe there's something that needs to be tweaked that we need to look at that. Just my
Yeah,
thought.
so I'm gonna start and then I'll punt to Chris. But if you log into any county computer right now, the very first thing you do after entering your password is there's a big screen that pops up that reminds you that this is county-owned property, and if you do anything stupid with that machine, that you're violating the adopted policies and you could face significant disciplinary action. I think that's what you're asking about, and we have that in place, and it doesn't matter if you are using the machine at work or at home. Every single person has to acknowledge the receipt of that message and click that they accept those terms.
I did not know that, and as a board, if we're not intimately involved in that, and that blanket screen that comes up, which I knew nothing about, and I'm sure board members didn't know anything about it either. That's why I asked the question. As long as there's some safeguards or pitfall, so we don't run into problems, is what I was asking.
Now, Chris, can you talk about your ability to, without going into a ton of detail, what safeguards do we have in place to make sure that inappropriate things don't occur with county machines?
Well, there's a lot of things that we have in place in terms of security, in terms of, filtering, scanning, one of the biggest things, especially with remote users, is making sure that data is secure, and especially given what we, host here, the type of data that we have internally. And so one of the things that we were very careful about when we implemented this remote access was setting up something called two-factor authentication. So when the user connects in to remoteberrioncounty.org, they sign in with their network credentials, but then they're also prompted with an authenticator code. They have to have an app on a smartphone that basically what it does is it generates a random code that regenerates every 60 seconds. So it's a random PIN that they have to access on their phone, and they enter that PIN in, and then they get into the system only if they have those two things available to them. So, and then we have all the internal stuff on our network that we have with our firewall, with our antivirus scanning, with our web content filters, all those things that are in place that they have access to, because technically they're accessing their PC here. So it's like they're working within the county network. So we have a lot of safeguards. The safeguards that they have here are extended to them at home. So it's very safe, it's encrypted communication. And so we've taken every measure. I feel, my staff has done a really great job of making sure that data is safe and protected and secure.
Thank you. So the answer is, we're covered.
I feel so, but not to stir up a can of worms. I know a lot of outside agencies, not so much from the technology side, but from the personnel side, do have remote policies in place, that govern workers' conduct from home, compensation, those kind of things. So that may be a direction at some point that we really need to take a look at. And just, is the county going to furnish equipment for people to work from home? Do we expect that they provide their own PCs, their own printer, monitor, and stuff like that? How are we going to address those kind of issues? We get those questions in IT all the time. Well, I can't print from home. I can't do these kind of things. Is that something that we're going to support long-term or be able to provide?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And if I could add that, we also have a policy about internet and email use that policy is, there's just a few of those that is given to every employee when they come in to do their paperwork for processing. That's one of the 3 policies that they're given at that time, and then they have to sign a sheet stating that they've received it and if they're going to follow that. On the work from home thing, that is something that my daughter, as an example, is working from home and has been since March. And before she did that, there was an agreement that she had to sign. And so, to Chris's point, maybe that is something that we might want to look at putting in place if this is going to continue.
It becomes very difficult to judge that 8:30 to 5 workday every day. If they're working from home and they take an email or call after 6, how do we address those kind of things? So especially when you have hourly employees and things like that, you really have to think about outside the box and how working from home impacts that. I know sometimes I was at a conference last year and one of the other agencies, had to have things concerning if an employee injures themselves in their home, while they're working, how does that get handled? So it raises a lot of complex issues that you don't necessarily think about.
Other questions? Thank you, Chris. Administrator Doucette, anything else you want us to know about this?
So the direction that we're looking for from finance is essentially recognizing the short timeline, recognizing the limited number of meetings that you're going to have left during the calendar year, and recognizing that we're going to be moving relatively quick. Would this group feel comfortable giving us it's essentially a blanket authorization to pursue these projects with the understanding that it would be contingent upon having appropriate CARES Act funding in place?
And what do you say, committee?
Yes, this is Bob Harrison.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Scott. I think we need to pursue this stuff. If we're going to have CARES Act money, it's very important that we have the direction to our administrator on which way we're going to go, because if he has that direction and that CARES Act money comes available, it's going to have to be done quickly to assign those contracts to get this work done. The work doesn't have to be done by the 31st, if I'm correct, but it has to be assigned. And that would just give them that flexibility. So,
Yes.
Yep.
Commissioner Hinkleman?
I'm fine with it. I agree that you need to move forward on the CARES Act money. Our requests, even if they can't be fulfilled, we need to move forward on it. So, yes.
Yes, and I would like to support that. And if you need us, or if we need to come meet up or be on the phone to make a motion or to make something happen or to open bids, I'm available.
All right, commissioners, I appreciate that feedback. What I'm going to do is either today, tomorrow, I'll be leaning on Chris and our finance folks to see how much of this we can get done get earmarked and get back to you for final approval. And Commissioner Yarborough, yeah, plan on some very quick turnarounds on this.
Yeah, I would hope we'd all be available, do all we could to be available.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
it's Commissioner Scott. Brian, I know Doug is out right now.
Yep.
But when he comes back, usually, and this would be my third year on finance, but usually on December 31st, finance meets for the year-end closeout to balance the books. So if that's the case, and that is this year on a Thursday, when does all of these decisions and that have to be done? Because as you know, just as well as I do, I mean, we've got 2 finance meetings today, oddly enough. So I think we're in unprecedented times, and this CARES Act money, this is so important for us to use that.
Yeah, so, yeah, we're without a doubt, we're going to be asking this group to connect just prior to the end of the calendar year and roll all expenses that we possibly can get done into the CARES Act funding. We'll also be asking to take final action on any budget amendments that are necessary. To this group, here's our reality. Last week, several members of the finance department were out on quarantine. This week, our finance director is out dealing with just a pretty sad family situation. So as we just click down the number of days that are still in the calendar year, knowing that we've got staff coming and going either due to quarantine, due to personal leave, it's just making this situation even more difficult to navigate. So having some blanket approvals is definitely going to give us the most flexibility possible. And just being completely candid, I'm not sure if I'll have Doug back next week. So we're going to do our very best to get as many of these projects queued up and hope that between myself, Chris, or Doug, we can either physically connect or connect over the phone to figure out how to get these things booked and finalized before the end of the calendar year.
May I ask, Stephanie, where do you work?
Finance.
What happened at the jail? Is the lady that went to the jail still there, or something I remember seeing? Did you go to the jail with the sheriff?
No, Sherry Vance.
Right,
She was the one that opened the bids, and she's working at the jail now.
right. I thought she'd gone there, but it seemed like I thought I saw something where she was no longer there, or I just didn't know.
No, she's still there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, committee? Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, commissioners, the next thing on our agenda is board appointments. And I think between either you or I and Dan, or you guys have heard that we've got a couple of vacancies we're going to have near the end of the year here for the Planning Commission, and we've got a couple still that we're trying to fill on the Public Works Board, and we have had these posted. I did come across an application, which I think I sent both of these to you guys, these 2 individuals. So I had an application for Public Works that we never got into the process of finalizing. I spoke to this individual yesterday just to make sure, because one of the things we're going to have to make sure when we look to appoint and fill these people is that they're going to have to be able to do virtual meetings. I mean, and we need to make sure they have the capability to do that. So I spoke to the one individual for the Public Works Board yesterday, and he does have the equipment and availability to do that. He is still very interested in this position. And so that's the individual for Public Works, which would fill one of the spots, and I believe we still have 2 others on that one. The other individuals for the planning commission, this gentleman already is on our brownfield board. This board does not have a policy that would restrict someone from sitting on 2 different boards. We have a couple of people that do that. So this individual knows somebody who's stepping down from the planning commission and has expressed an interest to fill one of those spots. I don't know, I can't remember who sits on brownfield from the board, but they probably are aware of this gentleman. And so with the planning ordinance, as well as their bylaws, they have categories that they're trying to fill. And we try to kind of make that a broad representation of the county. This individual, after Dan Fetty and Katie Montoya had reviewed his application, feel that he would be fitting into the education area, and that is one of the spots that's going to be vacant at the end of this year because that individual is not going to seek reappointment. And so what I looked from the finance committee is to have a recommendation to move these 2 individuals forward to the board for full action, to appoint them to the Public Works Board and also the Planning Commission.
Excuse me, and that's what I wondered when I saw Planning Commission. I saw 2 applications. I didn't know how many spots were vacant. So are there 2 spots vacant?
On Planning Commission, we know of 2 people that are not going to seek reappointment. And we have 1 vacancy that we still have not filled.
Maybe 3.
So I'm aware of 3 at this point.
Okay. And then the Public Works, how many spaces are there?
I believe that one may be 3 also. I have to double check the numbers on that, but I know it's at least 2.
And so you have 2 people for Public Works also?
No, I just have this gentleman, the one application that you received, Mr. Stanich. So I have him for Public Works and then Mr. Van Hoven for Planning Commission.
Okay, say it again. So is it 1 for each of those committees?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, you have any questions?
No, I used to be Lee Vangenhoven's boss, and so we've been serving on the brownfield. He took my place when I left the first time. And so with me is Mike Majerick as chair, and then Terry Freeling and I represent the board on the brownfield. So I think both of them would do just fine.
Okay. Anything? Commissioner Scott? I saw your light come on. Okay.
Nope.
Then I'm fine with them being there. Do we need to make a motion or what?
I'd like
just
to make a
that
motion if you want one.
we accept? Does anyone know? Do we need to make a motion to accept them?
I'll make a motion, or let Bob, you make the motion, I'll support your motion.
So I'll make a motion to recommend to the board that we appoint these 2 individuals, one for the Planning Commission and the other for the Public Works Board.
I'll
Okay,
support that motion.
it's been moved and properly supported. Any further discussion? Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Yarborough,
Mimi Yarborough, yes. Benton Harbor.
Commissioner Harrison,
Tom Harrison votes yes, Lincoln Township.
Commissioner Hinkleman,
Commissioner Hickman votes yes. Beaver Township.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes. New Buffalo Township via Zoom.
Thank you. It passes. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. So I will have those on the December 5th board agenda for the full board. And so I'll have that under a finance recommendation. So they may turn to you guys to just kind of feed that in there, and then we'll do that. And I'm hopeful that over the next few weeks, I'm going to be coming back to you guys a lot more with some other applicants that we can try to get appointed to these guys. So, or these boards.
I've got one for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the
Question,
next thing, oops, sorry.
question.
Yes, go ahead.
We are in a time right now with this latest order from the health department. It's curtailing a lot of what we do on a daily basis. We have a lot of people and staff that are off right now that are working remotely. And also with the holidays coming up, it throws a complete flux into our meeting schedule. My question is, unbeknownst to what's going to happen before our next meeting in December, do we need to think about running some of these things immediately and adding it to today's board meeting rather than waiting? I just don't want to get into a position where all of a sudden we're really going to be up against it down the line because we don't have that many more meetings before the end of the year. Just my thoughts.
And you're regarding appointing these people to these boards.
Right. My only point is why wait until another meeting? We don't know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
If we've done this before and
Yeah.
had the same day turnarounds, I don't mean to make, more work on a net and maybe we don't, but maybe it could just be an agenda thing for, I don't know, other business or appointments on the agenda. So
I like that, Commissioner Scott, because Annette, you just talked to these people and they know that we're working on this and they said yes. Yes?
Yep.
just my thoughts. I'm not trying to make any work. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't get bogged down later on because
Yeah.
we're not going to have as many meetings and we don't know what's going to come up.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts.
I like
Sure,
that. I
no,
like very much to bring it.
It's fine, I was just trying to not push it all the way through in one day, I just figured that we could wait, but it's not a problem. We can make this happen at the 10:30 meeting.
Good. That's
mean,
a good move. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So,
So the next thing on your agenda is your committee business, and the first thing under committee business is for administrator to talk about the FOC remodel project.
okay. Administrator?
Madam,
Yes.
yep, I'll go ahead. So I've emailed each of you a packet on the Friend of the Court or FOC remodel project. Over the last couple of months, the admin committee has physically toured the FOC space, has worked with staff and outside engineering to take a look at what is right now an extremely tight working environment for the FOC workers. If you have not been into the FOC space, I just can't stress enough that there is, the way that it's currently laid out, there is limited ability to do any type of physical distancing between our staff, and quite frankly, it's just a really uncomfortable space. When I started in early July, Mr. Tom Watson, the manager for the FOC operation, brought to my attention their space limitations. And at that time, Tom was just trying to get cubicles replaced. As staff had ongoing conversations with Mr. Watson, I just kept pushing, hey, fixing cubicles is one thing, but we have a whole lot of unused space that is essentially just a foyer. Through those conversations, we all agreed that taking down a wall and pushing the office space out further into the foyer made a lot of sense. Through those conversations, the CARES Act funding became a reality, and as we just discussed with the IS upgrades, the Friend of the Court just seemed custom made for a project that needed to be addressed and could be legitimately tied to our CARES Act funding. The admin committee has endorsed the project. Our buildings and grounds team admitted at the admin committee that just due to the ongoing jail project and other projects, they did not feel confident that they could carry this project forward and have contracts in place and committed prior to the end of the calendar year. That's where I jumped up and just said, hey, this is a good project. I want to get it done. We anticipate that the total construction cost is to be around $100,000. And if the only thing keeping us from getting it done is we just don't have the time, that's where we need to pull in an outside consultant to help us. For today, I'm asking that the Finance Committee approve an agreement with Avonmarsh Engineering, which totals $7,000 even. The benefit of that contract is twofold. Number one, they will, in a very short timeline, bring you bids for the construction work. And then number two, they'll provide construction management services to make sure that we get those bids converted into contracts. Those contracts get approved prior to the end of the calendar year. And then most importantly, that the work is completed per the design and per staff's expectations. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I know that from Buildings and Grounds, between Todd Johnson and Robert Ray, this is going to take some pressure off of those guys, allowing them to focus on their other work. And from Avonmarsh's perspective, they've agreed they can get this work done. And in about 2 weeks, I will bring you back the recommendations on which general contractor to engage to get this stuff completed. I just hit you all with a lot of information. I will happily answer any questions.
Very good. Commissioners?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Scott Bryan, by hiring a project manager and having them send out bids to contractors, does that alleviate this county, this finance committee, the task of having RFPs with sealed bids and bid openings because we hired them to do this for us?
So the answer is yes and no. This will be a deviation from your standard bidding process. The reason for the deviation is solely the timing. If we're going to get this done and get this expense booked before the end of the calendar year, we have to go this route. So the sealed bid process is being deviated. Now the upside is we will guarantee that we engage multiple firms and that we bring you back as many quotes as possible. I will not book this work without the blessing of the Finance Committee, but I've also made very clear to Avonmarsh that this is a 2-week turnaround. We've got to have the contracts engaged prior to the end of the calendar year, which means they've got to get this work shopped as quickly as possible.
All right, thank you. And my next question is, does this work and we have to get this done because this is a CARES Act thing also. Okay.
Yep.
But what are the ramifications, if any, from the Michigan judicial system on cutting down the amount of business that is done at the courtroom or at the courthouse and the amount of people for the indoor gatherings and things like that? That could greatly affect us. I don't know. Just my thoughts. We live in such unprecedented times. You can't think I've seen it all because you haven't.
No, so that's an excellent question. The timing actually is good. The courts have just returned to phase one. They're essentially on lockdown. Jury trials are shut down until January of 21. So if we were going to do this work, doing it during the court shutdown is going to have the least impact on day-to-day operations. The FOC staff will still have to live with some noise and some dust, but right now is a window of opportunity where you have the fewest number of people working in the building. So doing this work now does make a lot of sense. Now, I know we'll still have some complaints just due to construction noise and living with construction, but I think the practical approach is if you're ever going to do it, right now probably is the best time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the only questions that I had. Other than that,
This is Bob Harrison. Did Avonmarsh do the design then, the conceptual and that? I assume they did. Their names on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's really
Yeah,
no,
so,
we're not going to get into one of these, one plans it and the other.
yeah, so Marsh's architectural team designed the FOC remodel, and it's included in your packet. That FOC remodel was developed with input from the FOC staff. We made sure to engage Buildings and Grounds, made sure to engage Karis Patanka, the court administrator, to ensure that we didn't run into a situation where we're talking about significant change orders.
I'm okay with it.
Me too. So do we need to make a motion?
I'll make that.
Ideally,
motion to go forward with the Evan Marsh as project manager on the Friend of the Court remodel.
Okay.
I'll support the motion.
It's been moved and properly supported. Any further discussion? Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Yarborough,
Yes, Mamie Yarborough, City of Benton Harbor.
Commissioner Harrison,
Yes, Bob Harrison, Lincoln Township.
Commissioner Hinkleman,
Yes, Commissioner Hinkleman, Bainbridge Township.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes, Commissioner Scott, Buffalo Township.
Thank you. It passes.
All right. So your next thing is your minutes approval for the November 12th meeting.
May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Scott, I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Harrison, I'll support the motion.
Moved and properly supported. Any corrections, additions? Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Yarborough,
Mamie Yarborough, City of Benton Harbor, yes.
Commissioner Harrison,
Bob Harrison votes yes from Lincoln Township.
Commissioner Hinkleman,
Commissioner Hinkleman, Bainbridge Township, yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes, Buffalo Township.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, your next thing is your bills resolution, the weekly bills that we do. Were you guys all good with that? I don't need a motion. I just need to know that you're okay to move it forward.
Yeah,
Yes. We
I'm
need a
good.
motion?
Nope, I don't need a motion. All right, so we're good on that one.
Yes.
And then your last resolution is, I have Warren Parish on here for, in case you guys have any questions about the apportionment or amending that. He had chatted with you guys about that before. Depending on what was going to happen in the election on November 3rd, we may have to amend that, and so that's what this is. Does anybody have any questions for Warren? He is on Zoom. No?
Thank you,
Okay.
Warren, for doing a great job.
Okay.
All right, and-
So where are we now with the election? We've got to wait for the, whatever that is. What is the group? And then they're going to decide if they'll have a recall or not. I mean, a recount. What is that?
oh, yeah, so the District 5 Commissioner race was that completed on Monday of this week?
I think it was when they did the canvassers were done.
And so they do the essentially the equivalent of a coin toss, and Mr. Gorenflo won that process. I've heard some rumors that a recount could be coming, but I would defer to Sharon Tyler just to give you the most up-to-date information.
Uh-huh. Okay. Thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you, sir. Mr. Parrish, thank you. Our next is public comment. Do you have any?
Yep, I'm checking for you.
Okay.
Commissioners, while she's checking, I just wanted to make sure you all saw that we're going to ask you to reconnect this afternoon. Is it at 4 p.m.?
4:15, actually.
For 4:15 p.m. and we'll try and make that as painless as possible.
And those are bid openings for,
It's for contract legal services, and I believe that is through the juvenile contract.
Juvenile delinquency, yeah, I believe is what it said, and then,
With parents.
the parents, and then the other one was for the social worker.
Yep. And just for your information, commissioners, this is one that we know that we're going to have multiple bids, and I'm planning to ask you all to allow staff some time to read through those proposals. They're likely to be somewhat lengthy. I'd like to have Paul Jancha lead the process of reviewing those and getting a recommendation prepared for finance's consideration.
Okay. Okay, so it's just opening and accepting them, not, yeah. and then-
Correct.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right,
and Paul Jancho will be attending
Yeah.
that. He'll be here for that bid opening as well, so.
okay. And Administrator, do you have any other things you want to tell us?
No, I think we're good.
And no public comments, so you're good to, I think you got everything.
Commissioners, do you have any things that you would like to discuss or say?
Only thing I'll discuss is it's a big meeting day. Finance, board, land bank, finance.
Yes, that's it. We're here.
At
We're
least
there.
for you and I, Mamie.
Yep, we are here.
Yep.
Thank you all. This was a good meeting. I thank you, Annette. I thank you, Stephanie. I thank you, Administrator, and Warren Parrish and Swihart. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sweetheart.
all right.
Thank you so much. We will see you at 10:30.
Standard, okay.
See you later.
Bye.
All right.
Now, what did you say?